Yeah, so the season's been a bit patchy in the Central Tablelands. We've seen some areas were able to get good early break, particularly around the Gulgong, sort of that northern area. We saw some of the eastern fall country that eastern area in the higher part of the tablelands also got rain a little bit earlier, whereas some of our other areas to the south and to the west, particularly around the Cowra and the like, we saw that rainfall didn't really come in till very, very late. Although the season was very, very mild, it tended to be a bit late for crops to come out of the ground. We didn't quite see our typical autumn break that we saw that moisture and some of those crops get away. What we've seen over the last month or so is we've really seen that bit of moisture, but unfortunately that soil temperature's really dropped. A lot of areas saw their first, second, third frost in a few weeks, and we've really seen that temperature decline. As a result, we've seen pasture growth really quite diminish off quite substantially. We're seeing animals grazing for longer. They're not able to fill up on that feed. We're seeing animals spending a lot of time chasing that green pick in a day and just simply not meeting their needs. And that's then flowing on to some animal health issues that we're seeing. Okay, as we go ahead, it's really important that people start to have a plan, look at the animals, make a plan with the animals that they have got, think about how they're going to change over the next few months. You know, what states are they go through? Are they ewes that are going to lamb? Are they cows that are going to calve? Are they ewes that have already lambed? Start planning what paddocks we're going to look at for those lambs if we're looking at things like early weaning. Particularly for our sheep, thinking about ahead of what we might actually look at, what type of paddocks. Think about the background of those paddocks. Also, one of those things that we tend to see through winter period is being aware of what happens when we get these cold fronts that come through from the south. Looking at some of those paddocks, if we're looking at lambing ewes, picking paddocks that ideally have got a northeasterly aspect, steer clear of paddocks with southerly aspect for lambing ewes. And also, if we can, if you don't have that sort of lovely northeasterly paddock, look at paddocks that have got some form of shelter. This can be old tufts of grass, tussocks and the like, something to break that wind up and give a bit of shelter in those colder periods. What I've seen over the last few months is unfortunately people have used hay a bit early. They've used a lot of hay and unfortunately we haven't saved it. What I would be saying is take stock. Think about the stage of your animals, particularly if we've got lactating cows and lactating ewes, that you're going to need that hay. They need roughly around about 20% roughage component in their diet to make sure they lactate. So if you're still feeding and managing, you need that hay. Also that hay, it's a very valuable resource and really start to plan out and map out actually how much.
With recent rain, many producers are considering putting stock out onto green feed. And it's really important to remember that it takes the rumen about 14 days to adapt to any change in feed. So to reduce animal health and production issues, we need to be putting steps in place to manage this transition. Stock should never be given access to a new paddock hungry and allowed to gorge. It's really important that we fill them up with fibre first and preferably let them in later in the day. Provision of extra roughage is also really important for the first couple of weeks while the rumen is adapting. Ongoing, it's important to supplement fibre on our dual-purpose canola and forage brassicas because these crops are particularly low in fibre throughout their growth stages. Our lactating animals, our lactating ewes and cows also have a higher requirement for fibre as it helps drive lactation. Any change in diet, particularly going on to lush green feed, significantly increase the risk of pulpy kidney. Stock who haven't been vaccinated in the last 3 months would benefit from a booster 2 weeks before going on to green feed. So grass-dominant pastures and grazing cereals are known to be low in calcium and magnesium. They also tend to be high in potassium, which can block the uptake of these minerals, further increasing the risk of grass tetany, which is low magnesium, and milk fever, which is low calcium. It's essential that stock, particularly growing, pregnant and lactating animals, are given additional salt, calcium and magnesium to counteract these risks. And providing these minerals in a loose lick is a great way of doing this. Cold, wet weather can make stock go off grazing and also supplements, and it's a good idea to supplement with additional roughage during this period to buffer this time. For late pregnant and lactating stock who are at risk of grass tetany and milk fever, providing this roughage in the form of a legume-dominant hay such as lucerne will help reduce these risks. A rumen operating in the optimal pH means fewer animal health issues and better growth rates. On lush pasture and our grazing crops, these crops are really high in water-soluble carbohydrates, which are rapidly broken down by the rumen bugs to make acid. Producers should consider using palatable buffers and ionophores to help manage the acid load in the rumen. This is particularly important if we're also supplementing with grain on lush feed, as this just further adds to the acid load in the rumen. It's important to be mindful that the short green pick in our paddocks now may not meet the needs of a ewe heavily pregnant with twins. A ewe can waste a lot of energy moving around the paddock trying to graze this green pick, and this can put a ewe that is heavily pregnant with twins at particular risk of preg tox. Producers shouldn't hesitate to reach out to any of their local district vets or ag team for further advice or to have more of a chat.